Lizzy Musi appeared invincible to the outside world, shattering records, breaking barriers, and becoming one of the biggest stars in Street Outlaws, no prep kings. But while the audience saw the victories, few understood of the tempest she was waging off the track. It was a struggle no automobile, no engine, no crew could defend her from. And, regrettably, it's a war she would lose far too soon. This is Lizzy Musi's tragic tale. Born on January 1991 in Carter, New Jersey, Lizzy Musi was practically weaned on the scent of burning rubber and the boom of engines. Her father, Pat Musi, was already famous in racing and engine development, while her mother, Elizabeth Agneta Musi, brought a Swedish-American flavor to the family's roots. Lizzy's early discovery of her passion is not surprising given her background. She began moving into junior dragsters at the age of 8. And through her teenage years, racing became more than a hobby. It was a way of life. By 16, she had wrapped up her run in the junior ranks, already proving that the track was where she belonged. In 2012, life brought a huge adjustment. Pat Musi relocated his horsepower shop to Mooresville, North Carolina, the center of racing country, and Lizzy made the trip south with her family. Although it was a change, she accepted it. The warmer winters, the southern warmth, and most significantly, the limitless racing culture made her feel completely at home. She could step outside and hear the scream of engines from local dragways or dyno testing ringing across the area. For someone like Lizzy, it was nirvana. Lizzy immediately assumed a leadership position at Pat Musi Racing Engines, with her father focusing more on constructing engines than office duties. She began handling much of the day-to-day business. The shop wasn't just putting out engines for enthusiasts. Some of the biggest stars in the sport were being propelled by it. From John Hall and Tommy Franklin to Ricky Smith, the defending NH Pro Mod World Champion at the time. While her mother and sister handled paperwork, Lizzy oversaw parts, orders, invoicing, and customer communications. Her father continued to lead, but it was evident that this was a true family operation. However, the labor was hard. Phones rang non-stop, orders piled up, and consumers from across the world sought Pat's advice. When he traveled, Lizzy often held considerably more responsibilities. But she thrived under pressure, believing that busy days meant business was growing. Inspired by her father's unrelenting work ethic, his inclination to be in the shop even on Christmas, Lizzy poured the same intensity into her own career. While business kept her grounded, Liz's heart still belonged to the racetrack. She made her big debut at the 2012 ADRL season opener in Houston. Quickly proved she wasn't simply another newbie. She qualified her team owner's 1969 Camaro in 5th place, and even won her first elimination round. But the day took an unexpected turn when a burnout mishap led to a disqualification. Embarrassed yet driven, Lizzy knew she had more to prove. That chance and a moment of viral stardom followed soon after. During qualifying at the ADRL Spring Drags in Bristol, Tennessee, Liz's Camaro lost control at the finish line. The car shot into the air, slipped past the guardrail, and crashed into the grass at a breakneck pace. Incredibly, a filmmaker filmed the entire scene while narrowly missing being struck himself. The film swept over national and international media, putting Lizzy in headlines everywhere. She became well known overnight, but not for the reasons she desired. She handled the increased attention nicely, even going on Fox News to explain the tragedy and her racing career. Still, she made it plain that she didn't want to be known only as the girl who crashed. Winning races and chasing titles was her true objective. A new automobile provided her that chance. Weeks after the Bristol crash, her crew purchased a '68 Camaro, and Lizzy immediately reminded everyone what she was capable of. At the ADRL race at Street Louis, she clocked a career best pass at 4.15 seconds, qualifying fourth, and advanced through 2 rounds. For Lizzy, it wasn't just about the outcomes. It was about demonstrating she belonged behind the wheel. With a calmer ride and greater confidence, Lizzy and her crew became a constant in the elite sportsman ranks, consistently qualifying among the best. By the end of her freshman season, she had reached the quarterfinals in Dallas and ended 7th overall in points, an achievement that hushed any lingering concerns about her potential. In 2013, she transported that same fire to Rockingham, North Carolina. Lizzy raised heads with her finest qualifying performance ever, landing second. The momentum rolled into Seal, Georgia, where she qualified third before rain cut the event short. But the message was obvious. She was here to stay. She achieved yet another second-place start in Cordova, Illinois, and in Richmond, Virginia. She finally broke through with her very first #1 qualifier prize. She battled all the way to the semifinals and departed Richmond, sitting on top of the top sportsman points race. The season resumed in Martin, Michigan, following a brief hiatus. Once again, she started near the top of the field, qualified second, and made it to the semis. However, she didn't always have a good weekend. She qualified 6th in Memphis, faltered in the first round, and had a rare early exit. Back at Rockingham, things didn't improve. She left the line too early in the much-awaited battle for the belts, which immediately terminated her day. Dragstock followed, but despite a respectable 4th-place qualifying lap, she was gone after round 1. Even with the letdown, Rockingham remains one of her favorite experiences from the season. Admirers there went up in droves, waiting up for autographs and cheering her on regardless of the results. She adored those moments, often noting that no matter what occurred on the track, the spectators made it all worthwhile. They were her energy source, her motivation. Many even brought up her notorious Bristol blue car incident. However, at this point, her performances had mostly taken the place of that recollection. Her expanding fame also brought new obstacles, especially attention from fans, not all of it simple to bear. Many of her male admirers had other goals, but young girls and women frequently came to her for inspiration. Some requested her phone number. Others wrote desperate messages on social media asking for dates. It was overwhelming at moments, but she kept her focus on racing, refusing to let distractions pull her off track. In terms of her personal life, she acknowledged that she had dated a few drivers in recent years, but none of the partnerships were long-lasting. That wasn't by chance. Her father repeatedly reminded her that the family's energy needed to stay on the racing company, and she agreed to succeed at the level she wanted. She had to keep her focus on the sport. Everything else was secondary to racing. By the end of the season, she had slid to third in the standings, but within striking distance. 5 drivers remained in the championship pursuit when it all came down to Houston. Unfortunately, calamity happened. Her team's transmission problems eventually gave way. During testing, the car seemed invincible, blazing off 3 scorching passes with razor-fast response times. Up until the first qualifying round, when the transmission failed in high gear, confidence was at an all-time high. Her ambitions for a title evaporated in an instant. Heavy rain in Houston shortened the qualifying rounds short, leaving her no time to recover. Eliminations carried on without her, and she completed the year 7th in points. It was a bittersweet ending, strong overall, but marred by what could have been. Still, she acknowledged her team and sponsors, reminding herself that racing is unpredictable. Anything can go wrong with the car at any moment. That season was a true turning point. Not long after parting ways with John Lee, she found herself embarking into a completely new chapter with the Professional Drag Racers Association. Driving her father's vintage Dodge Stratus, Lizzy was competing in the professional nitrous ranks this time. Her fledgling racing career was set to undergo a permanent transformation by July 2014. At just her 5th ever Pro Nitrous race, she lined up at the inaugural PDR US Drags at Virginia Motorsports Park and astonished everyone by driving her way to victory. This wasn't simply another win, it was historic. For the first time in the 89 race history of the Pro Nitrous division, a female driver stood at the top, and she was only 23 years old. Lizzy had already been turning heads in her debut season. She had burst through the 3.70-second barrier, crossed the 200-mile-per-hour threshold, and reached a final round only weeks ago. But Virginia was different. She ran an astounding 3.740 seconds during qualifying, a new Pro Nitrous record that put her at the top of what was thought to be the fastest field in the class's history right away. To even make the 16-vehicle lineup, drivers had to run an astounding 3.889 seconds or faster. Liz's time not only qualified her, but also made her stand out among 32 of the world's top nitrous vehicles vying for seats. Her 8th-mile pass also became the fastest door slammer without a supercharged engine ever measured on American soil. That run was even more astounding considering how precarious things had been leading up to it. Testing had been hard. The first 2 qualifying runs were a challenge, and by the night before, the team's last hope was to just get the car down the circuit in one piece. However, everything changed with Lizzy's launch. The automobile came alive. She flew through the line, and the scoreboard displayed 3.74. Lizzy, still strapped in, rejoiced in shock at what she had just accomplished as crew chief Gary Henry shouted it onto the radio. Her father, Pat Mui, acknowledged behind closed doors that the team had struggled with testing. Another legend of drag racing, Ricky Smith, intervened to support Lizzy and assist in setting up the chassis. Pat labeled himself a motor person, and having Ricky there to balance things out meant the world to him. The two had previously collaborated. Ricky had been part of Pat's triumph years before, and once again, that cooperation paid off. From that moment, the mission was clear. They weren't leaving Virginia without the win. Pat assembled the team, including Ryan Lowry, Joe Dunn, Gary Henry, and Elizabeth, Liz's mother, and emphasized the significance of performing correctly. Both the vehicle and the driver were prepared. Now, it was about pulling it all together. Through eliminations, Lizzy retained her composure. She got past David Campbell and Jay Cox before meeting John Camp in the semifinals. It looked like her run was over when the tires shook severely at the start, but Camp's Camaro burst in a major engine failure, and Lizzy managed to recover, pedal the vehicle, and snatch the wind. Pat, who had driven the identical automobile himself for years, lauded his daughter's ability to handle it under pressure. She proved she wasn't easily rattled. Jason Harris, a driver who had won 4 straight races that season, faced her in the final round. Both vehicles spun the tires off the line, but Lizzy got hers under control, pedaled it, and powered to the finish. In an instant, Lizzy Musi made history, and Harris was finally defeated. She took a moment to reflect while sitting in her car after crossing the finish line. In an instant, Lizzy Musi made history, and Harris was finally defeated. She took a moment to reflect while sitting in her car after crossing the finish line. Relief, happiness, and the unexpected burden of greater expectations. The trophy wasn't the only aspect of winning. It meant the pressure was only going to rise. But Lizzy trusted her father, her crew, and the automobile beneath her entirely. Pat Musi, meanwhile, wasn't startled in the slightest. He'd always believed she was built for this. From the time she was tiny, she'd been immersed by the sport, absorbing up every aspect. To him, Lizzy wasn't only talented, she was destined to leave her mark for years to come since she was a natural. She demonstrated this that year by winning PDA Rookie of the Year and appearing on the cover of Drag Illustrated's most popular issue. Her voyage, however, was not without its scares. There were several scares along the way. In March 2015, she and veteran Ron Monks were involved in a horrific high-speed crash during Pro Nitrous qualifying at the PDR Texas Nationals. Miraculously, both walked away unharmed, but it was a sobering reminder of just how deadly the sport actually is. Still, Lizzy didn't back down. Later that same year, she bounced back to take her second career Pro Nitrous win at the Brian Olsen Memorial PDR World Finals. She won another race at Galat Motorsports Park in September 2016. Additionally, her success extended beyond American tracks. Lizzy took her talents overseas to the Arabian Drag Racing League Pro Series, where she set new ground as the first female driver to win a Round 4 final. But just when it seemed like nothing could slow her down, life provided the biggest curveball of her career. In April 2023, Lizzy Musi sat beside her fiancé, Kai Kelly, and conveyed tragic news with her YouTube audience. Her breast cancer was classified as stage 4. It all began months earlier in late 2022 when she first detected a bump. Over the next 6 months, it grew, and after a series of tests, physicians confirmed the worst. The cancer was malignant and had already spread to her lymph nodes and liver. The moment left her in amazement. Lizzy acknowledged that the remarks made her cry, but she also made it plain that she wasn't giving up. She obtained care at MD Anderson in Texas after beginning treatment in Mississippi. Despite juggling his racing career, Kai remained by her side the entire time, pledging to fight beside her every step of the way. During an interview on the West Buck Show in May, Pat Musi discussed his daughter's struggle. He emphasized Liz's bravery and attitude while describing how difficult the diagnosis had been. Doctors advised her to keep doing what she liked, and for Lizzy, that meant racing. Still, not everyone understood. Online commenters questioned her decision to race while having treatment. Pat pushed back, saying her emotional wellness was just as vital as her physical healing. Racing gave her purpose, and discouraging that was the last thing she needed. He admired her resilience, naming her the bravest among them, and resolved to take her fight one day at a time. And Lizzy proved them all correct. With her doctors okay, she entered into the NPK season. She demonstrated that she hadn't missed a step at the season opener. As always, she handled her car under duress. Then, in August, a moment occurred that put an end to any doubts. Lizzy Musi drove a brand new Bonnie 2, manufactured by Robert Hayes. 0 to her first victory of the season in Tulsa. The triumph propelled her up to 3rd position in the standings with a 135-round record. After the race, she talked with real honesty. She reminded everyone that the fire inside her was still blazing, despite the overwhelming months since her diagnosis and the doubts of many. She expressed her gratitude to her family and support network for keeping her strong. And, at the conclusion, she and her father shared a very moving moment in which they both acknowledged the struggles they had faced to get there. Her momentum carried forward. Soon after Tulsa, Lizzy scored another victory, this time in a final round staged at Baynier Speedway. By season's end, she stood tied with 7th position in the Invitational points standings, a strong declaration that she refused to give up even in the face of her most difficult obstacle. Liz's season has both potential and uncertainty. At the beginning of 2024, she was still searching for the correct treatment after her cancer had spread to her lymph nodes and liver. Nevertheless, she was resolved to continue racing despite that struggle. In March, she claimed a match racing win over Jeff Lutz at the Drag Illustrated World Series of Pro Mod. By April, she uploaded a video that showed her loving life to the fullest, even while enduring chemotherapy. She discussed how the trip had given her a fresh outlook, a stronger sense of purpose, and strength derived from her faith, family, friends, and medical professionals in her message to fans. By May, she opened up further about her fight with stage 4 breast cancer. She disclosed that her final race at Empire Dragway will be her last for a while after undergoing a number of treatments in the U.S. Lizzy was traveling to Germany to receive a specialist treatment that would specifically target her liver. She added that after researching the doctor and the approach, she decided it gave her the best chance moving ahead. Her father, Pat Musi, remained solidly by her side, expressing confidence in her decision and stressing that European treatments were often ahead of what was offered in the States. Throughout it all, Lizzy handled herself with resilience. She reminded everyone that racing wasn't only a sport to her, it was an outlet, a reminder that disease hadn't dampened her passion. With her support system behind her, she kept committed to living completely, both on and off the track. At Empire Dragway, that spirit was evident. During her showdown with Paige Coughlin, Liz's Camaro, Bonnie 2.00 came into difficulty in the water box. Paige and her squad decided to give Lizzy more time instead of taking the quick win. It was a moment of pure sportsmanship, one that Pat Musi said mirrored the long-standing respect between the Coughlin and Musi families. Lizzy went on to win the race and finish runner-up for the event, ending her U.S. season with second place in the point standings before flying overseas with her mother at her side. Then came June 27, 2024, a date that shocked the racing world. Lizzy Musi passed suddenly at barely 33 years old, surrounded by her loved ones at home. Pat relayed the tragic news directly, thanking supporters for their prayers and asking for privacy as the family grieved. Tributes flowed in with expressions of astonishment, sorrow, and affection filling social media. The Musi family had to decide what to do with Bonnie, Liz's cherished '69 Camaro, in the weeks that followed. A long-standing relationship with the Franklin family provided the solution. After heartfelt talks, it was decided that Bonnie would continue racing under Tommy Franklin Motorsports, with Tommy's son-in-law, Blake Denton, moving into the driver's seat. The choice Pat and Liz Musi made had nothing to do with letting go. It was about commemorating Lizzy. The Franklin and the Muses had been great friends for more than 10 years. Their families intermingled, not just through racing, but through true relationship. Lizzy and Amber Franklin, Tommy's daughter, had always supported one another, and now the Franklin team was determined to keep Liz's spirit alive on the track. Bonnie joined an already impressive array of Franklin vehicles. But this project held a deeper weight. Blake, who had captured the 2023 PDR Super Street World Championship, took on the job with humility and thanks. He thanked both families for entrusting him with a car that meant so much, and realized how unique the chance was. Early testing began at Virginia Motorsports Park, with the car looking just as it had during Liz's last run at Empire Dragway. The team's objective was to turn Bonnie into a professional street competitor from her no-prep king setting. The goal, under the direction of tuner Jeff Pierce, was to get the vehicle ready to compete in one of the most difficult drag racing classes. Tommy Franklin underlined that this wasn't just about adding another car to the stable. It has to do with legacy. Lizzy had achieved multiple triumphs in Bonnie and the Franklin team, intended to maintain that trend into Pro Street. They made it plain they wouldn't rush. When Bonnie came to the track, it would be ready, and every windlight would serve as an homage to Lizzy Musi. a racer whose fire continues to burn long after her final run.